A couple of years ago was my beginning involvement, and I ran for supervisor, as many people know, more on principle than with any genuine hope of winning. But I didn't like the idea that someone was running unopposed, because I was convinced it wasn't 100% approval here, and I wanted to see more dialogue, and there's some things I wanted to draw attention to.
Yep.
And that hasn't really changed. So this is the next time. I was born in West Plains, Missouri, moved here when I was 3, roughly 1958. Been here since, except for times away at college. I'm a carpenter, mostly, although less and less as I get older.
Yeah.
And parts are wearing out. My family had property here since, what, 1907 or so.
Oh.
My mother's grandfather had bought property here.
Wow.
And the house that we lived in as a child was that home. So I was away in school in South Carolina at Bob Jones Academy from 7th through 9th grade in Greenville, South Carolina. And then I came back here for my sophomore through senior.
And then you went to college?
I went to Florida Southern College for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, so I quit, and here I am. I've always been somebody that spoke his mind, you know, from the time I was quite little.
Yeah.
My earliest confrontation with authority came somewhere in my 9th year of life.
What was that? What happened?
It was a 3rd grade teacher that didn't like one of my answers on a test, and I argued it, rather strongly until she thought it was too strong. So anyway, I've always had no fear of that. As much, I get geared up for confrontation, but I don't run from it. I don't like it, if you follow me. It's a little bit of a churning process, but I refuse to be bullied. And I felt that I'd sat by too long and let too much go on. And complaining about it isn't really the answer. And you can't really just, even complaining about it in person isn't the answer. The answer is the answer, and you have to be prepared to bring some with you when you start engaging. The most important thing to me, really, about Shelter Island has always been that sense of community, of knowing people, and, what I miss as time has gone on is actually knowing which car to wave to. Because now, I don't know anymore. But it was always a tradition here, you sort of gave them at least the one finger wave.
Yeah. Because there's so many new people coming in.
There's new people, new cars. People trade them in much more frequently than they used to, except for me. I keep mine until they die, like dogs, It's about that sense of the island and how we used to get along together, and I'd like to see us continue to do that. It may be a Rodney King moment, I don't know. You can't make people use forbearance with each other, but you can recommend it, and you can damp down the fires when people get in your face about things, or in somebody else's face about things. It's important not to let an inter-neighbor issue necessarily turn into something that has to become a law. So I just want to spend some time in the middle of the fight and try to, steer us away from, laws that interfere unnecessarily. And sometimes, I add some extra discussion to it.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that at times we don't really go around the topic as much as we need to make sure that we've covered all the angles and are as careful as we need to be to make sure that we don't step on people unnecessarily. That's very important.
How will it be when you're on the other side and sometimes the job is to achieve something that may not be perfect and may have lots of problems, but nevertheless may be the best thing that you can do?
It's certainly a valid question. I've asked myself many, many times, what happens should I get to the other side of the table? Who's going to take my place?
Right.
And pick on me? Or am I going to have to walk myself out to the audience, at least mentally, and sit there so I can, because it's a completely different perspective. I'm convinced that people lose that after 4 to 8 to 12 years. To remember what it's like to sit in the metal chairs that don't have cushions in them.
Yeah.
Okay? And to have to raise your hand before you speak. And to have to be given permission. That's a very big deal. And it's a completely different perspective. And how I will manage that remains to be seen. I hope well. Financially, they've done a fine job, I think, of keeping expenses under control as best can be hoped for. Our taxes are lower than most. The failures really, in my estimation, are just sort of vague process that they go through at times. It's always interested me that carpenters such as myself and other contractors have to have a plan. They have, rigid standards that everybody has to meet. for their behavior, for their conduct. The public in general has, standards of conduct, and yet quite often the town board seems to approach things without a plan, without, a process.
What was your thinking about the causeway proposal, which they pulled off the table and are working on?
As I told the Ram Island Association when I spoke with them, should that legislation come to pass, it should, it's the terms of surrender. I view that as a failure. At that point, we'll be unable to buy it. We won't own it. We won't control it. And then we're going to describe how we're going to retreat. We're going to put a doghouse up there. There's going to be somebody standing outside of it with a shotgun chasing people up the beach. As it came up last night at the zoning board meeting, that zoning is always inclined towards progress towards conformity. And I'm thinking, Shelter Island's all about non-conformity, and that once we get to conformity, we've got porridge, we've got vanilla, everything.
Yeah. Why should people vote for you?
Because I'm the best guy for the job. I put in quite a little bit of time learning the ropes and in actually engaging the current town board with, on various issues and 5 or 6 different laws, I've had impact on and how they turned out. I was able to persuade them, otherwise they're not bad people. They just need to be talked to sometimes. And so that's, I've done the work, I'm doing the work. And I hope to continue, one way or the other.